Hollywood directors and producers love to tell stories about how long lines of famous actors form to play some role in their movies. But this is not always the case. And on some occasions, one or more actors have turned down roles even though they later became very popular. Today we're going to look at the top 10 actors who turned down big roles and regretted it. If you consider yourself a true fan, you'll leave your like before the video starts. This is something that only true fans do because they already know they're going to love it. Jack Sparrow, Pirates of the Caribbean. You probably can't imagine anyone else being Jack Sparrow other than Johnny Depp. And, in fact, very few people know that the role was actually written for Hugh Jackman. The directors ultimately rejected the idea because the actor was not well known outside of Australia. And then the role was offered to Jim Carrey and Matthew McConaughey, who ultimately turned down the offer. And luckily for the entire audience, the role fell to Johnny Depp. 2. John McLean, Die Hard. In Hollywood, there has always been a rumor that the first choice to receive an offer to play police officer John McLean in the movie Die Hard was Arnold Schwarzenegger. Initially, the movie was going to be called Commando, and Arnie turned down the offer for ethical reasons. The main villains in the movie were terrorists with a German accent, an accent that, as everyone knows, Arnold also has. After his refusal, the role was offered to Sylvester Stallone, Harrison Ford, and Don Johnson. But they finally ended up giving it to Bruce Willis, who at that time was not as famous and was more specialized in comedies. 5. Jack Dawson, Titanic. The director of Titanic, James Cameron, insisted that Matthew McConaughey had to play the lead role in his movie. But when the actor studied the script, he refused, as the idea did not appeal to him too much. Cameron gave him a second chance and told him that if he did not do it, he would regret it for life. However, the actor did not even respond to his calls. Leonardo DiCaprio, second on the list, played a role in a movie that won 11 Oscars. Interestingly, Christian Bale and Macaulay Culkin also auditioned to play Jack Dawson. Bruce Wayne Batman. Every good Dark Knight fan knows that Michael Keaton played the Batman in this 1989 movie, but not many people know that Mel Gibson had the chance to play Batman at that time. Gibson was already a superstar and could afford it. What role is to play? So he thought about it and stated that the movie would be a failure. Time, obviously, told him he wasn't very sharp, as the movie was a huge success and grossed $400 million at the box office. 5. Django. Before Jamie Foxx got this role, the movie's creators offered it to Will Smith. Initially, Prince Dr. Veller accepted the offer on the condition that they rewrite the plot, as he believed that some parts of his script should have more prominence. The scriptwriters refused to modify anything, and the role ended up being played by Jamie Foxx. That's after Idris Elba, Chris Tucker, Ferris Howard, Michael, Kenneth Williams, and Tyrese Gibson turned down the role. Dr. Robert Neville. The movie I Am Legend was scheduled to come out in the mid-90s. And at that time, the main candidates to play Dr. Robert Neville were Tom Cruise, Michael Douglas, and Mel Gibson. Although in the end, it was Arnold Schwarzenegger who signed on. The plot of the movie, like the one that finally came out, was too dark and had almost no dialogue during the first hour. At that time, when everything was action-packed movies, it was almost impossible for it to succeed, and its filming was canceled. In 2002, the project came back to life, this time with Will Smith as the protagonist, and Arnold was the producer. 3 Pretty Woman. When someone talks about this movie, no one can imagine anyone other than Richard Gere for the role of Edward. However, Alfacino was very close to being it, so much so that he even rehearsed with Julius Rober several times until he decided that role was not for him. After him, Christopher Reeve, Daniel Day-Lewis, and Denzel Washington went through several tests until in the end, the same Julius Rober convinced Richard Gere to participate in the project. But there were not only problems with the male role in this movie. The Disney company, the producer of the movie, rejected Julia Roberts and invited several actresses to audition. Diane Lane started filming the movie, but her conflicts with the filming crew made her leave the project. Michelle Pfeiffer refused to play a prostitute, and in the end, Julia Roberts, at 21 years old, got the role. And, moreover, as we mentioned before, she was the one who convinced Richard Gere to appear in the movie 3. Charles Manson, the portrait of a killer in the 70s. When director Martin Scorsese was in the middle of filming Taxi Driver, he received a call from director Tom Grace to play Charles Manson in his movie Manson, the portrait of a killer. Although in reality Scorsese didn't look much like Manson, his scruffy hippie look was very similar to that character. Ultimately, Scorsese had to turn down the offer due to significant concerns. In 1977, when Jodie Foster was nominated for an Oscar for Taxi Driver, and the director had agreed to play Manson, he received several death threats from relatives and admirers of the person accused of conspiracy to commit murder. Martin had to attend the Oscars, guarded by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. He turned down the role, and it was finally played by Steve Railsback. Christian Grey, 50 Shades of Grey. It seems that very beloved characters in books must be quite coveted in the world of cinema, and that's why the role of Christian Grey became a real challenge for many actors. Robert Pattinson, among many, offered to do it. However, the director rejected him because he thought that after his tender role in the Twilight Saga, he didn't fit this role at all, and the viewers wouldn't take him seriously. Ryan Gosling, who was chosen, said he was not interested in the project at all. And as a result of this, it was offered to Jamie Dornan. Michael Corleone, The Godfather. The executives at Paramount wanted to see only popular actors of that time, such as Warren Beatty or Robert Redford, in the role of Michael Corleone. After both declined, they offered it to Dustin Hoffman, who declined because he didn't want to play the role of a mobster, as he believed it could affect his image. The director Francis Ford Coppola always thought that Al Pacino was the ideal candidate, but at that time, the actor was not very well known.